One, two, one, two, three.
There probably won't be any questions. Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming to tonight's Don's Trust SGM. Tonight's running order is starting right now. We've got Jacqui Oatley and Maddie Sweetman, who will do a 25-minute Q&A talking about all things Wimbledon and wider football. And then from 7:30, we will begin the main subject of the meeting, which is a presentation from the board. So I'll now hand over to Maddie.
Hello, everybody. We are here with Jacqui Oatley. We are very, very lucky to have her along tonight. So firstly, welcome back to AFC Wimbledon. It's a pleasure to have you here. And I just wanted to ask, so how did your journey with AFC Wimbledon start?
Can you hear me now? Oh, thank you. Well, first of all, thanks for inviting me. Really lovely to be here. An excuse to come down to Plough Lane. Honestly, we've kind of fallen in love with this place as a family, honestly. So I live about 20 minutes or so away from here. And it all began really because I've been parenting for 14 years. I've got a 14-year-old and an 11-year-old. And obviously, I've been talking non-stop about football their entire lives, hoping they'll become football fans. My daughter more so than my son. And it's only a year and a half ago that he actually got into it at all. And now he's completely obsessed. And he came home one day, having initially kind of started to follow his dad towards Man United as his sister did. And he came home one day and basically said, AFC Wimbledon this, AFC Wimbledon that, AFC Wimbledon this, AFC Wimbledon that. And I was like, this is music to my ears. Because even though I support a team where I grew up in the West Midlands, I just wanted them ideally to support a local club because I did. So I I appreciate the joy of supporting your local club. When I say joy, I mean the joy of winning a game in every 8 or something, because probably 5 of those you might lose, and then you might have the odd draw in there. But when you win, oh my God, is that special. When your team does something, I've never supported a club that's not local to me in some capacity. And so I don't really understand the concept of following a big team on the telly. I kind of understand it, but I've never experienced it myself. So when he started talking AFC Wimbledon, we got really into it, and then his sisters got into it, which is great. And then my husband's got really into it because he never had a local club coming from Newbury in Berkshire. He was in a little village in the middle of nowhere, so he supported Man United like his big brother. So we as a family, to answer your question, have just fallen well in love with AFC Wimbledon.
Fantastic. That is brilliant to hear. It's always so nice to hear about people falling in love with their local club, because to everyone in this room, they'll all know the importance of having that local club. And obviously we are here for a Don's Trust general meeting, and I was just wondering about the Don's Trust. I think it's quite important that our members do have that voice, they do have that say within the Don's Trust, and I think it's a great way to start that fan ownership process off. And I just wanted to get your thoughts around fan ownership. Do you think it's something that could work in football? Have you seen it work well here since you've been here? Obviously comparing it to other clubs that may not have fan ownership.
Yeah, it is such a different model. It's just such a different concept, obviously, and so much about life as a journalist, life as a football fan. I was a football fan a long, long time before I trained as a journalist. And so much of it is about how we feel about our club. And how we feel about our club is not just about what goes on the pitch on a Saturday or a Sunday or Tuesday or whenever it is. It's how we feel about the whole of our club. And when we see these people passing by, the custodians of our club really matter. And they don't have to have come from there. Of course they don't. Those days of Jack Walker and winning the Premier League and what have you, they're mostly gone, aren't they, in terms of being bankrolled by a local successful businessman or businessman, whoever. So when you have an owner that you know has no interest in the people who work for the club, who've been there for years, the people on the front desk, the reception, the liaison manager, the people who've grown up loving that club, when you know the owners don't give a stuff about them, that matters. Definitely. It really matters. And so when you've got a completely different model, and when the owners effectively are like you and really care about those people at the club, because it's those people at the club who are helping to make those decisions, then it's completely different. And how we feel about our club when it's run by those kind of people is different to those who, frankly, are shafting the supporters.
I completely agree. I think fans are so vital to football, and I think it is definitely something that can create a lot of intense emotions. And I think particularly times like this where we have that potential to go up a league, and you can feel that kind of pressure and that intense need and want to go up the leagues is there by every individual that's within the ground. And I think having these events to be able to be transparent and to be able to show the direction that we are planning to go is so, so important. And
sorry, Maddie, there is the desire to go up a league. Of course, it'd be lovely if AFC Wimbledon promoted to League One. It'd be great. But if they're not, then it's not a case of, to hell with them and we'll go back to watching a big team off the telly. Whatever happens, the club's in your blood, or the club is you. And if they don't go up, then you'll ask questions, you'll go to the pub, you'll talk about it. It's still your club. Exactly. And yes, it'd be lovely if they go up, but then there'll be more questions about finances if they do. But that's another story. That's not one for me.
That's one for the Don's Trust.
I look forward to watching other people talk about that.
Exactly. So, but on the note of potentially going up, we have got a big game this weekend, and it's a ground that you have been to before, Grimsby. What advice would you have for any of our first-time fans that might be travelling there this weekend? Anything that you think, actually, this is a good spot to go to?
Okay, number one thing, go hungry and get fish and chips. Do not show up having bought some horrible, disgusting ginster's pie on the motorway or something. Do not do that. Show up hungry and do your homework on the best fish and chip shops, because that's what it's all about. It is stating the flaming obvious, isn't it? But yeah, I used to go there midweek nights when actually they used to be in the Championship, and I was at Leeds University, and I'm trying not to ever talk in public about which team I support, but if they're playing gold and black in the West Midlands and they're in the Championship for 19 years, and I was a supporter of most of those years. And the year they finally went up was the one that I changed career and ended up watching other people's football teams. That's sod's law. But yeah, I used to go to Blundell Park, to Roker Park midweek. I set up my own supporters society of my Fiat Uno from Leeds Uni and travelled all over the country, spending all my student loan literally on being a football fan on the motorways and what have you. And but love away games. We talk to my kids about going to away games. We really want to go and watch AFC Wimbledon away because, yeah, it's great coming here. But when you've got the hardcore fans concentrated in a certain area, singing all the rude songs, he knows all the words, so that's okay.
That does. It definitely brings that next level to that fan experience, I think, and it ties the children even more into the club. And I think going back to what you were saying about having that local club, it is so important. And both of us, we've both played football before, and playing football, I think being able to watch a team as well, it gives you so much perspective, so much knowledge, so much wisdom off the pitch and on the pitch. And I think it's so important to have that opportunity to go to a non-league or a low league team, club near you. And it is something that is highly spoke about at the moment, especially as things are getting more expensive. I mean, most recently we see Man City obviously talks about them not filling the 5,000 seats at Wembley the other night, and then their fans kind of coming back saying, well, actually it cost us £300 to get down there and back, and the actual day out, it's not a cheap one. So how important do you think having that opportunity, especially as we've got young players coming through, having a local club that they can go and watch and spend time at and get to know?
Well, it's so important because we keep hearing every day, don't we, about clubs who frankly don't want season ticket holders anymore and how they actually want the day trippers. And by the way, I'm not one of these people who is snobby about people coming from abroad and wanting to go and watch a Premier League team. Like if I go to New York, I might want to go and watch local basketball or baseball or whatever. So I'm not snobby about that. But of course, you're hardcore. The people who make the noise, the people who really care, the people who'll be there if you get relegated to League Two from the Premier League, and trust me, my team's done that before. They're the people that you should be looking after. Okay, they might not be bringing you in the big bucks, but they're the ones, the fabric of the club that actually keep you going. So the idea that they're trying to get rid of season tickets and resell tickets for a couple of times the price, and because they know that the people in from abroad will pay those amounts of money, they need to be really careful what they wish for. Need to be really careful. And that's why if you've got people running the club who get the club, who care about the club, then obviously those decisions are going to be slightly different. Of course, they're tricky. Finances, we want new signings. We want this club, we want to score some goals, for God's sake. I've forgotten what it's like. Just go and see a goal. Of course, we want it to work. We want the manager to be able to have funds, of course. But the communication and understanding how clubs are run and making sure that you look after the hardcore of the fan base is absolutely essential.
I completely agree. I think it's so important to make sure that you don't upset your own fans, but you're listening to them and you're hearing them and you're explaining to them why things are happening. I think when you've got so much social media and so much ability to kind of have these thoughts that spiral out of control, it is so important for clubs to kind of make sure that they are in touch with their fans and they are making sure they're giving that communication back.
The problem is some of them don't want them to know what's going on. That's the problem. So you've got, I mean, God, what clubs were I doing at the weekend? I did 2 commentaries at the weekend, did Wolves-Leicester and then Chelsea-Barcelona for TNT and the Wolves-Leicester game. In commentary, I was saying that the Leicester hierarchy haven't given any interviews since they won the league. Like, what the heck?
It's incredible. And the amount of lack of media training that you see now for some of the players, and you think these poor players, they're going out and meeting fans every day, but they have no understanding of what they're expected to do sometimes. And I think that is really important. And just kind of tying it back to that emotional feeling of how intense emotions can be with football. Back in 2007, you were the first female presenter for Match of the Day. Commentator. And I think since then we've had so many positive movements and some fantastic women like yourself who have trailblazed the way for so many young females to come through and feel there is that pathway. But in your last interview that you did with Stu and Reese, you mentioned how it did take you a moment to step back and reassess and think about, actually, I want to change my picture, I want to find my pathway in my career, and I want to be involved in sport. And sometimes, as exciting as that can be, it can be very nerve-wracking stepping into the unknown for some people, especially a young female in a male-dominated environment. So what advice would you kind of have for anyone that might need to take that step back, that might need to reassess and maybe think about, where is my next direction going?
Yeah, so for me at the time, I was working on the New Kings Road in sort of Parsons Green area, Fulham, and living there as well, and hobbling into work every day, working in intellectual property, and I dislocated my kneecap badly playing for Chiswick Ladies away at Egham, I think we were, in the Greater London League. Anyway, 10 months on crutches, a lot of time to reassess. It was really miserable. I don't think intellectual property was really for me, and I was not for intellectual property. I don't think I contributed a great deal to that particular situation. And yeah, you were still travelling all over the country, watching my team play every Saturday and playing every Sunday. And then when the football was taken away from me, and I wasn't happy at work, and I didn't have a boss who I liked. There were lovely people working there, but it just wasn't right. You know, when you're heading in a direction.
It didn't fit.
Yeah, and I just thought to myself, is it better to be at the bottom of a ladder you want to be on, rather than halfway up one you don't? And I thought, yeah, so I had decent job, good income, lovely housemates, was saving up for a deposit for a house, and actually I was halfway up a ladder I didn't want to be on. So I jumped off, broke my kneecap, and yeah, that's when I went to do hospital radio at Charing Cross Hospital, and one night a week did radio production course, another night a week, introduction to journalism, another night of the week, and after 6 months of that I thought, okay, yeah, this is what I want to do, and that's when I gave up my job, gave up my flat, and slept on friends' floors for a summer, and did full-time work experience, and decided, okay, I want to do this properly. I want to learn the profession from scratch, and went up to Sheffield, did a postgrad in broadcast journalism, and started covering non-league football for the local radio station there, and literally just learned how to be a journalist right from the very bottom. And in answer to your question as to how you do that, I think it is sometimes just a case of literally just switching everything off, just switching off all your notifications, switching off your phone, going for a walk, and just thinking, what do I actually want from this life? You know, even though I couldn't do sport anymore, couldn't play football anymore, did I just want to carry on that treadmill of doing the same things, or do I just kind of want to get off that treadmill and start again? I'm not saying it's easy, I'm not saying it's for everyone, and of course, financially times have changed. Everything's so expensive now, for goodness sake. So, but I do think it's worth at least researching. That's what I would say. I'm not saying, yeah, hey, follow your dreams, gung-ho when you've got a family to support. Yeah, give up your job. No, I'm not saying that. But
all of you can sleep on the floor is fine.
Yeah, no problem. I was single at oh no, I wasn't. I had a boyfriend, but that didn't last very long after that. Sorry. Sorry, Craig. But yeah, so it was just a case of reassessing and thinking, what am I passionate about? I was thinking, all being well, I'll turn 30 one day. Do I want to turn 30 working my way up from the bottom of a ladder, or do I want to turn 30 still miserable doing, work-wise, I mean, in life I was quite happy, but all those hours a day doing something that just wasn't for me, and I just had this funny feeling inside me that I was going to end up doing something I was really passionate about, and I didn't know how, because I didn't know anyone in broadcasting and journalism, football, I didn't know anyone. So it was just a case of working it all out myself, but yeah, I'm glad I did now.
It really is a fantastic journey you took, and I think it's something that a lot of people can relate to, because taking a step back and being able to look at yourself and say, actually, this is my life and I'm going to take control of it, is something that a lot of people aren't ready to take that step. So seeing someone do it and be so successful in something that they're passionate about, I think it really is something special for that next generation, and it really is how women have got to where we are. And on that note, your journey when you first kind of started in journalism and broadcasting, you obviously had that very famous interview with the UEFA president in 2005, Joe Hansen. So after some of the comments that he had made, I think for a lot of men it was quite eye-opening, but for a lot of women it was the start of being able to kick it out and start to show that actually this isn't okay. But how did you handle it so well at the time? And do you think we've come a long way since then, or do you think there's still more that needs to be done?
You say famous interview, but I bet nobody in the room has a clue what you're talking about. You're thinking, what famous interview? Well, okay, so you probably don't even remember Women's Euro 2005, I'm guessing. Probably not. It was in the northwest of England, and it was concentrated up there specifically because it was still new women's football. And actually, on the eve of that tournament, Manchester United decided to announce, actually, we're scrapping our women's team. We don't want to put any resources into that lot. Deep breaths. So during that tournament, I got on great with the FA press officer, Alex Stone. He's an absolute wonder, still works in the women's game now, has been at FIFA. So I was working for the BBC, I was commentating for 5 Live, and I think that's what I was doing there. And during the semi-final between Norway and Sweden, which, let me set the scene, if we're being brutally honest, there were a lot of blonde ponytails. Okay, I'm just setting the scene for you. And I think it was in Warrington or somewhere like that in the northwest. And just coming at half time, I think I was reporting for 5 Live actually, because obviously England weren't in it at that time, been knocked out. And the lovely press officer came up to me and said, Jacqui, I've got a few minutes with the UEFA president, Lennart Johansson. Come and do an interview with him. And I was like, brilliant. And so I said, and half time it's Norway, blah, Sweden, blah. And I grabbed my mini disc recorder and, you're kind of running up the stairs into a little exec suite thinking, what do I ask him? I had no notice about this whatsoever. And so I sat down and what have you made of the tournament? Oh, yes, brilliant tournament. I was thinking, has he watched any of it? I'm not entirely sure. And I thought, what do I ask him? And my brain was thinking journalistically, what can I ask him that would be eliciting an interesting answer? I mean, that's the job, right? Not just, is it good? It's great. You like women's football? Oh, brilliant. Cheers. Back to the second half. So I was like, what can I ask? And I thought, Sepp Blatter said something pretty derogatory about women playing in tighter shorts. I'll ask him about that. And he said, that was terrible. Why did he say that? That's a terrible thing. He should never say that women should play football in tighter shorts. And I said, well, what's your answer then? What do you think is the answer to promoting the women's game? He said, they should look to the sponsors. And when they see the lovely looking ladies all sweaty in the rainy weather, that would sell. And I remember thinking, right. And then I also remember thinking, right, second half's about to start of the Euro semi-final. But something just stayed in my head that there's a bit of a line in there, news line, journalistically. I think that's quite interesting. So I went back to my point to the press box and I filed down the one line from the thing. And I said to the producer, John, I said, just have a listen back. I'm sure he says something about sweaty ladies looking lovely in rainy weather or something. Anyway, I thought nothing more of it. I'd filed it, I'd flagged it, reported on the second half. And actually, there was a big party at one of the team hotels and we all went out and got absolutely hammered. So I stayed over at that hotel, not my hotel. There was a spare room I'd like to put. There was nobody else in it. And I woke up the next morning with a banging hangover. I turned my phone on and it went absolutely insane. Literally, ping, 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 ping. Because Chris Moyles on the Radio 1 Breakfast Show had played this clip to death. And so you can imagine. But it wasn't the brightest thing to do, but unfortunately, it just shows you 20 years ago this summer, those were attitudes. We still have lots of issues with attitudes. I think a lot of attitudes actually have changed to women's football, but it's more people who own clubs and their attitudes, as you might have seen with Wolverhampton Wanderers, allowing their women's team to get to the final day, just miss out on promotion to the championship by that much, and then tell them, by the way, we didn't actually apply for promotion, you wouldn't have gone up anyway. That happened yesterday. It's currently in the news, being reported on. So
I think, there's definitely still a way for the women's pathways to go in the world of women's football. There's definitely them levels to it. We're climbing up, but we're not where we probably should be, considering how well the female players do play and their ability to succeed. And I think some of the positives that have come out, and moving on to a bit more of a positive, what do you think? I mean, you've seen football all over the globe, probably some of the best football in the world, some of the best stadiums in the world, to all the way through to probably some of the worst stadiums, and probably not some very bad misses and bad football. What do you think in terms of thinking about women's sports up and coming? What nation has really stood out to you, and what nation would you say has really shown a forward drive and forward motion?
USA, definitely. So I've spent the last 2 years, as well as living here, I've been bombing over back and forth to the USA to commentate for CBS main channel on their NWSL, their top women's league. And it has been eye-opening for me, absolutely eye-opening, because I've been covering WSL here I was for Sky for a while, then NWSL. And the thing that's been most interesting is that when I'm over in the US, no one there is talking about men's football. Yeah, they've got MLS, and that's really growing, by the way. We used to kind of be a bit snooty, Ted Lasso-y about football in America. It's really, really growing, partly thanks to Messi. But actually, it really just is of its own accord. And they don't have the sexism there that we have here. I won't bore you about the 50-year ban for women playing here. But that's obviously a factor here, why attitudes have been so poor, why the game's development was stunted. Yeah. Conversely, in America, they had something called Title IX, which meant that their universities, their colleges, which are obviously huge for sport, weren't allowed to discriminate or give any less funding for their women's teams. If you were having men's soccer, let's call it that, with a certain amount of federal funding, they had to give exactly the same amount to the women's programs. Therefore, the women thrived, and they've been fantastic. They've been winning World Cups when their men have not been qualifying for World Cups. Sorry, I had to get that in, but it's true. But the main thing really is the fact that this is the key thing that I wish people in Europe would get their heads around. The commercial potential for women's football is enormous. Yeah. Can we please get away from this? Let's let them play. Let's let girls play. Yeah, for God's sake. For God's sake. It's not about letting them play because it's nice to let little girls play. Yep. No, the commercial potential. Arsenal, did anyone see Arsenal yesterday getting through to the Women's Champions League final? That is incredible. Huge in Lisbon. I was at the Emirates a couple of years ago for their semi-final against Wolfsburg. Amazing game. Sell-out crowd. The noise was phenomenal. They made £500,000 profit just that day, just for that game. Brilliant. Arsenal do things properly. They are genuinely a one-club mentality. None of this let the girls play nonsense. And let's get all the teams together for a photo shoot, and then they won't see each other again for the rest of the year, like some clubs do. The commercial potential. So that's what they do in America. They sell the game based on sponsors who are interested in putting money into the women's team to sell their product. So independent funding, different sponsors for the women compared to men's football. And that's an opportunity we haven't quite got our heads around here. It's all about how much money can we take from the men to give to the girls. And I think we need to get away from that and think about which sponsors would be attracted to sponsoring our women specifically, bringing in independent finance for the women's team, then giving them the facilities they need to be as fit as they can be, to play the best that they can be, to get back fit as quick as they can be if they're injured, and give them the platform to play, and they will thrive, and the game will just grow.
I think you're so right there. And I mean, when we have seen Arsenal, Chelsea, even AFC Wimbledon women, when they play at the stadium off their men's, you can see they are producing that crowd, they are producing that atmosphere, and more importantly, they're producing a family environment where families can spend the day together. And I think that is such an important thing, especially in this day and age where technology has so many advancements and is able to keep people in for so long. It's so important to have that aspect of where can we go? Where can we go and have a good day out? And sometimes men's football may not be as accessible between the money, the season tickets, like we were saying, and all the different aspects to it. But actually, women's football, we have got that ability to commercialise, to develop, and to thrive in that area. And I think exactly what you're saying, the let the girls play, is one of my worst pet peeves. I absolutely hate that. I think just showing that girls play football, and do you want to come and trial for a team? Do you want to be able to do this? Not just, would you like to have a little kick around and play some tag-based games? No, give them real structure, give them real direction, and show them that there is a purpose and a need for women in sport. And I think it's something that, like you said, the Americans have done it for a long, long time fantastically, and it's something that Europe in that department could really start to look at and go, actually, how do we bring that aspect across? And just thinking about bringing it back to our club, obviously I know you said your son Max, he's very involved and loves the club. What about your daughter? Has she had much involvement in Wimbledon herself?
Yeah, honestly, we love coming down here. This has been one of the joys of getting into AFC Wimbledon. Not just the concept of having a local club, but actually coming down here. Actually, my husband, he loves coming down here. You know, we come up here afterwards, after every game. And what you do here with having the player of the match up on stage being interviewed, their little hearts are racing. And he started bringing mates from school. That more and more of the lads from our local school, just down the A3 from here, they're all starting to come, bringing their dads, bringing their mums, bringing their sisters. It's growing a fan base organically through having a great place to come. We get off at Earlsfield Station. We love the walk down the road. The scarves, people stopping us, going, who's playing today? And they get so excited about what might be happening today. The fact that we can meet up by the food and have the my pie and the mash.
Oh, brilliant
love
food.
all that. And it's yummy. Honestly, but it's all part of the experience, the meeting up before and going to the pub and watching whatever game's on first and trying to find a place to hold your pie and eat and at the same time and chat to your mates. And we talked to Michelle about, can we have more high tables outside? Yes, please, Michelle. But being able to meet no matter where you are in the stadium, you don't get this at many grounds.
Yep.
Just that feeling you have. And we always come and spend a fortune in the club shop, which is a nightmare. 2 birthdays we had on Easter Sunday, both of them on the same day.
Wait till they ask for the mascot packages.
Yeah, dying to be a mascot. I think we're going to see maybe on the women's team if that's possible. But yeah, that whole feeling of coming and just enjoying the match day. And again, just touching on America, if I may again, what they do, I really admire the fact that so many of the clubs there put on sessions for autographs and photographs with injured players. And so you come early and you queue up, and they have a specific place where you can actually queue up and see them, and the little kiddies and the faces and the gear, and they're getting stuff signed, and then they're going home and they're putting it on the shelves, and they've got AFC Wimbledon memorabilia all around the bedrooms and stuff that they got signed, and photos of Matty Stevens here and Joe Lewis, who's my favourite player if I'm allowed on. It's not the shorts. It's not the shorts. Stop it. I know what you're thinking. It's not the shorts. I just love Joe Lewis as a player. He's aggressive. He's strong. I love it. But yeah, that whole match day experience, because you cannot control whether it's a good game. You cannot control the result. You cannot control whether they're going to score any blinking goals. But you can control the match day experience. So I think the more things like that, the stuff you're putting on, not just for kids, but having those high beer tables where you can meet up with your mates, have a catch up, and then wherever your tickets happen to be, you go off and meet them at half time. That match day experience, I think, is huge.
I think that you're so right, and it's the same as we know that the depression rates for men and suicide rates are higher, and actually when COVID hit, I think it was a big impact on a lot of men, because that ability to not go to sport and have that safe space was disrupted. And I think coming to football now, some men still need to shift that mindset of women aren't coming into men's game to take over, to push the men out. We still want you to have your safe space. We still want you to enjoy the game. We still want that intense emotion that you have. We want this as a release space, but we just want you to know we enjoy it just as much. And I think that is the truth of it. We came into the men's game loving the men's game, and that is the way the men's game portrays itself. It is something that is desirable to people. It's a collective. It's something that brings a lot of people in, and it's just being replicated with the women's game. It's showing you that football is the drawing. It's the thing that buys people in, and it doesn't have to be because of your gender and that you're assigned to just the women's or just the men's because you're a woman. And you've probably heard it many more times than I have, where someone looks at you and goes, oh, so you work in women's football then? And you have to kind of almost sit there and go, no, I work across the men's game too. And we hear that quite often, I'd say, compared to what a man might hear, oh, so you're working in the men's game. So it's definitely something that, it's the same thing as let the girls play. It needs to shift from that whole women are coming into the men's game. It needs to be people are just involved in football because they love it. And the same as you see male football managers within the women's world, you can see that in the men's game coming in, and you can slowly see that influence of women is helping progress the game to that next level. And I just think future generations have so much aspiration now, thanks to people like yourself that trailblaze and do put in the hard work to show everyone that them opportunities are there.
It's just football, isn't it? It's just football. And if we didn't have women coming and buying tickets, we wouldn't have as much money to spend on someone who can score goals. Did I mention the goal? But it's just football, and I think. But also, just on a side note, having women in leadership positions has been proven, and I mean proven, through studies, the likes of the McKinsey study, which is really interesting, that having that kind of diversity at the top of organisations has been proven to make organisations more money, because then you don't just have the cabal of like-minded individuals all kind of patting each other on the back, and you're getting different insights from different life experiences and different revenues of funding and what have you, and yeah, it's just football. That's all it is. No one's trying to trample on anybody's dreams, for God's sake.
And I think in this room, we'll all agree that there is something special. There is a culture at Wimbledon. There is something unique about our club. But as someone who's come into our club, and especially through your children, have you seen that? Do you think there is something special, a culture here that you think actually, wow, you guys have done something with this fan ownership? It may be tough at times, but you don't know how special this really is.
Oh, yeah, it is. It's a special club. I mean, everyone thinks their club's special, right? But this is a special club. And it's pretty obvious why.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things that's so special about this club is not just what happened to it, not just how it's come into being in the current form. It's not just that story, but it's the fact that it could have been anybody. And I think football fans from around the country, from around the world, John Green, for example, people who look at it and just think, how did that happen, number one, and B, it could have been us.
Yeah.
It could have been us. And the fact that it happened to this club and to this group of fans, and to see and hear what they did about it, and how they reacted, and how they reinvented what they had in a whole new entity. It is so special, and it's extraordinary. And Stu and I spend way too much time texting each other, don't we, Stu? I spend way too much time on my phone to you compared to the rest of my family. But it's true. We're constantly in contact. There's something about this club, and I'm always asking him stuff about it, and he's always telling me about it. I hope you don't mind me saying this, Stu. I don't think you'll mind. But when Stu was very kindly giving us a tour for both my kids' birthday at Easter weekend, and they were completely engrossed and gripped by the whole thing, and we were going through the museum, and about the idea that actually not regretting a thing that happened. What happened? You don't mind me saying that? Okay, it's a bit late now. No, but seriously, what happened was insane, genuinely insane, and so wrong. I think we all know that, but the fact is it happened, and the fact that the club has come back in a way that I don't think anybody could have imagined. It is Hollywood movie stuff, and hopefully there'll be the story of that. But I think the fact that it's come back into being the way it is, and it's just so incredibly special, and it's very easy to love this club. And hearing my kids talk about it and seeing them learn more about it, they actually want to see more about it. So kind of more videos and more storytelling would be phenomenal, because I think in movie format it would be extraordinary.
I think it's definitely something that is in the works. I believe we do have a Netflix something coming out at some point potentially, and we've got a mini series that has come out as well, which is one that's, again, like you said, it's a bit like the Lego video that we did a few years ago about the history. It just really helps bring it to life for the children, and I think there is that feeling when you come here of community, and there is that feeling of togetherness. And I think one thing that really stands out is, obviously, as adults, if you buy a season ticket, you can become a member of the Dons Trust. But you also, if you get your membership, you can do it that way as well. But for me, the junior Dons is a big thing. So we run a similar thing where our junior Dons will be able to come to different events throughout the year. They'll get a chance to meet players. Now, I know your son's definitely attended one recently. I just want to know, do you think that's kind of had an impact as well, being able to meet the players, go to events like that? Do you think that really kind of highlights that love and that future of, I'm going to be a fan forever at this club now?
100%. I really, really feel strongly about that. I know we talk about kids a lot, but actually you do have to get them young.
Yeah.
You get them young, because there's no point in this ground being full of, no offence, people who've loved this club, or Wimbledon FC as it was, for 50, 60 years. That's great. But we need people coming. And also we need people spending money in the club shop. We need people spending money here. And every pound, God, we're spending a lot of money in the club shop. But at least you don't mind it so much. You don't mind it so much here. Whereas if you go to my husband's club, Man United, and he bought them kits and everything there when we went on a tour there. And it was like a dagger. They're all kitted out, and it was like, it was horrible. And they're like, "Sorry, Mum." I was like, "You're not sorry, you little kid." No offence to Man United fans, but it was quite painful. But then when they came here and they came to experience their local club and the way they've been treated here, the way that, oh my God, I mean, I've just got to tell you that on our first game here, it was in October, Carlisle at home, I seem to recall. And, you know, we came in, we met up with Stu, actually, we sort of connected. I'd done a bit of social media, but I was genuinely so excited coming here. I'd reported on a few Wimbledon games, but this was my first time coming as a fan, and it was super exciting. And we bought the tickets online, and we went to reception, asked a question at reception, and the lady in reception said, "Oh, you're Max, we've got a certificate for you." I was like, "What?" Like, eh? And she got and I was like, that just because we'd registered online and bought tickets online, and that there was a certificate with his name and his surname, which is not my surname, on there. And we were just, our minds were blown. You're not going to get that at Man United. Someone in reception going, "Oh, you're Max, here you go, here's your certificate." No offence to massive global mega clubs. No offence to them at all. But you don't get that. And just that feeling that you have when you come to your local club. And those kind of events where we came and first of all watched the goalkeeper training, which was lively and fun. And then the rest of the players, and just hearing my son and his little mate Dylan just chatting with the scarves, and it was a boiling hot day, and they had all beer, and I went off to get a cup of tea, and came back, and all the players had filed across, and I was like, ask them some questions, and they were like, "Who's your favourite teammate?" And just having that conversation and sign stuff that goes home, and again it goes on the wall, and they're not going to turn to Man United or Liverpool or anybody they see off the telly. They might enjoy watching, you know, they're into the megastars on YouTube and what have you. But both of them, my daughter as well, they're like, "When can we next go and see AFC Wimbledon? When can we next go?" And I've turned down some work on the day of the playoff final because I'm commentating on the, I know, what a ridiculous idea, paid work, like I'm missing out on a couple of work gigs because I'm going to Poland to commentate on the UEFA Conference League final. And if I'd have gone on the Monday, that would be extra pay, and I'm like, I can't, I just can't, just in case.
Yeah, I don't think the kids would forgive you.
No, I just couldn't miss out. They'd go without me. I just couldn't. There's just no way. Like, we have to do it together. It's become a family thing.
That is amazing to hear. And I think, just as you said there, it's that investment in the kids early, because the more you can invest in them, the more likely they'll want to invest in you in the future. And you never know what that investment might be, whether it's as a player, whether it's as a supporter or something else. And I think it's incredible. But I want to thank you for your time with us today, Jacqui, and thank you for your support in the season. And we look forward to having you next season here.
Oh, thanks so much for having me. Thank you. Come on, the Dons.
Right, good afternoon, all. Can you hear me? Stu? Good afternoon, good evening. Can you hear me, yeah? Good evening, everyone. Hopefully you can hear me. If not, then please shout. No, I didn't think you could.
Try again now?
Yeah, I'll do that. Right, a bit better. So, good evening, everyone. Thanks for coming. I think before we start, we should congratulate the women's team for an excellent performance yesterday off and on the pitch. 4-0 win, 7th in the league with what is recognised as probably the lowest budget in the league. And I think a great celebration with over 140 awards given out and a great day out. Sorry I couldn't be there, but we have people staying. But congratulations to them, and particularly David, who's here. So before we start, just apologies. There's 3 board members not here, Simon, Ian and Graham, all of whom unfortunately were already booked and overseas and couldn't make it, and they send their apologies and very disappointed not to be here. So I think if we've got the next slide with the agenda. I can't see what's up there. So we're going to have the meeting in 2 parts. We're going to cover the everything apart from the Don's Trust strategy, which we'll do in the second half. We'll have some time for questions before the first half ends, and then the second part of it, the strategy, it's very much a initial draft strategy which we want to share with you and almost do it on a sort of collaborative basis and discussion as we go through. So if we now have the next slide. So financing. Now, I know at the Meet the Club board there was quite a lot on this. But we've also, the Don's Trust has also had some research done. And I think it needs to be told again, just to remind everyone effectively how mad football finance now is. So as you can see from that slide, hopefully, 8 clubs in League Two made a profit in 2020. Only 1 club did in 2024. And the average loss, as you can see, has risen from 0.4 million to 2.2. And you can see there that League One is even worse. And the wage bill, and this is the overall wage bill in League Two, rose by 26% across that period. If you look at Wimbledon itself, we are, for this season, 14th in the budget table for playing staff. 6 years ago, that budget would have been £1 million lower. And if you look at the most interesting stat from the recent report from the EFL is that if you just look at the clubs that were in League Two, both last season and the season before, the average increase in the playing budget across those sides is 15%. So how can they afford that? And this is the slide. If we have the next slide, please, Stu. This is the slide which was shown at the Meet the Club board. And this brings into context, and I know there's a lot of shock when people saw those figures, a bit from me as well, but it's the fact that the is from the top to the bottom, spending more and more money on wages to try and get to the next league and the next league. We've seen the Americans start to buy Premier League teams. I think they own half of them. But now they're buying Championship, they're buying League One, they're buying League Two, they're buying into the conference because it's a cheaper way of being successful. And that will probably continue now that Wrexham have had 3 promotions in 3 seasons. People will look at the lower league clubs as a way of getting the entry point. So, as you can see there, the club effectively has had an average loss of about 1 million over the last 7 years. We're doing better than a lot, but we've had the player sales, which has helped us, but we can't rely on that all the time. So I know some people say there are some things we should have been doing, which we'll come on to. There has been quite a campaign even before I came onto the board to control costs. So we're looking at the major cost lines like electricity, where we're getting fixed deals, and as much is being done as possible. And I'm doing a detailed cost review with Michelle and Laurie ahead of me reviewing the budget and then it becoming to the boards. But there is a limit to what we'll be able to achieve given the underlying nature of football finances. We do have this stadium, which in time should give us a good revenue stream, but it's going to take some time to develop and come up to it. So in the interim, we need to be able to fill this gap, which Mick talked about at the Meet the Club board, and I have to agree that we do need to do that, which we're going to come on to. Obviously, other clubs, these losses are covered by the owner. If you look at Port Vale, so I thought I might as well look at those because we've just played them. Their losses in the last year were £4 million. Their share capital is £100, and they owe 15 million to their owners. So, yes, they looks a little bit better than us. 2 bad decisions by the referee, we won't go into that, but that's what we're competing with. Okay, so if we go for the next slide. Oh, sorry, I got them. Yeah. So, as I say, the trust has commissioned some detailed work on finances. It's very interesting, and we will be releasing a report on that to the members, so you can see a bit more detail from the work that's been done for us. We're contacting bondholders to see if they'll roll over, or more importantly, convert it to equity to reduce the interest costs. We may be looking at another bond, maybe for some of the capital expenditure we need to do. And in time, I think we will need to go back to the equity position and whether we go below 75%. But that will have to be clearly articulated or better articulated as to why we want to do that. Because if you look at the finances, if we want to develop the ground in any way or get a training ground, we're struggling to cover that operating loss. How are we going to actually get the funds to do a training ground or develop the stadium without getting more equity in at this stage? So that's what we're doing. But in the short term, and by the way, we've got a holding slide on the constitutional review, which we'll come to, but we've agreed with the members that we won't be coming back to any vote like that before the constitution's rewritten. But in the meantime, I think the key thing we're going to be looking at is fundraising. Now, I know there'll be some people that say that we haven't been active enough in recent years on that, but we'll come on to that in a moment. So I think next slide.
Thank you, Sean. Good evening, everyone. So I'm here speaking on behalf of the Fundraising Committee to provide you on an update of the work that the is underway by the Fundraising Committee, and to also open up a conversation about how we can do more. So as the majority owners of AFC Wimbledon, you all know how important it is and how we must be proactive, creative, and united when it comes to raising money. So tonight I wanted to share with you a few key fundraising ideas that we're working on, but just to be clear, this is just a start. We're at AFC Wimbledon and we thrive by keep pushing for new ideas. So that's why we're here, and your input is important to us. So the first one is direct debit donations. We're excited that the direct debit donations will be in place and available and visible on the website. This will create a simple, easy-to-use webpage where fans can sign up to make regular contributions to the club. Regular giving, even in small amounts, provides a steady stream of income and can make a real difference to planning and stability for the club. The second one, many of you will already be aware of, is the Don's Draw. It continues and remains a vital pillar of our fundraising efforts. Every entry into the Don's Draw directly supports our academy, and the academy is one of the most important assets we have. Through player development and smart sales, the Academy generates revenue and helps us to maintain our financial resilience. Plus, of course, fans have the chance to win prizes, so it's a real win-win. Third is remembrance and legacy initiatives. We're also, working on new remembrance and legacy initiatives. These will provide new ways for supporters to stay connected to AFC Wimbledon for life and beyond. It makes it easy for fans to leave a legacy gift and can build a lasting foundation for future generations of Wombles. There will also be a dedicated page on our website for that, I understand. And the final one is around investment projects and specific projects that we're looking at, whether that be floodlights, upgraded tannoy, what's the other one? New turnstiles. So there are several important investment projects that we've identified, and they're designed to improve the matchday experience and to grow the club's revenue potential. These are, and if we move on to the next slide, it's about having, like with the floodlights, a targeted, specific project that we need to group together to as a club and as a fan base to work towards. So we're really about thinking bigger, smarter, differently, because we are a fan-owned club and we have to do that. So I just wanted to share those, but also remind everybody that we're always looking for people's thoughts on how we can do more and what specific projects like the floodlights that we should be working towards.
So next slide, please, Stu. So an update on the club chair. Firstly, apologies that this process has taken so long. It shouldn't have done. There are reasons. We'll be looking at those and making sure that when we're doing recruitment in future, we can shorten that timetable. I think the decision, given we were to sort of wait till the new board came in to look at the process that was undertaken and to ratify the decision, was a correct one. And I think rightly the new board wanted to make sure that there had been a process, that it had been a valid process, that understand what the headhunting search firm had undertaken, who they'd seen and how the decision had been made. But it has taken too long, so I apologise. I know there's been some questions online on Discord and on the website. So there are over 100 people identified by the headhunters who originally sifted through, ultimately came up with a shortlist of 6, which was then reduced to 2. And after the consideration, it was unanimous on the board that Mick Buckley would be asked to be reappointed, accept reappointment as the chair. I suppose from a new board's perspective as well, it also gave us a chance to see Mick in action certainly for me, at the board meetings and other meetings that we've had. So I got the reassurance from understanding the process, making sure it was a valid, genuine process. I know there's some comments as whether it was, and that's been done. And he's accepted the request to be reappointed as chair, but as I think we've highlighted in the press release, that he will be subject to re-election at the AGMs in December. So I know one question that has been asked is this a paid role? There's an entitlement if you're an executive role to be paid, both the executive chair and the executive vice chair. Michelle declined to take payment. Mick originally was paid, but from the 1st of July last year, with the appointment of Michelle, he moved into an unpaid role as well, and he will be in an unpaid role going forward. So I hope that answers some of the questions. There's also questions about the size of the fee and did we waste a lot of money. The fee was, I can't say how much it was, but it was a discounted fee. We had quotes from 3 different headhunting firms. the firm we used, our expected firm, they actually gave us a paper with a discounted rate. And we have actually met quite a lot of good candidates that we will be going back to in the future, be it their knowledge of sport or, in the future they may have useful contacts to us. So I'm hoping that those answers a lot of the questions that have been raised, but we will take questions shortly. I think the other slide, which I'd meant to put in, so I will apologise, is the constitutional review. So I'll touch on that now, because I know people have been asking where we are on that. We're lucky enough that a number of ex-chairmen of the trust or secretaries have voted or volunteered to be on the committee, including Jane Lonsdale and David Grounds, who's here with us today. We're making good progress. The way that the approval process works is we will need to present the revised constitution to the board, then to the fans. Once that's been voted on by the fans, it then has to go to the Football Supporters Association for them to review. Then it has to go to the FCA for them to review. Then it will need to come back to the membership to finally approve. There's been a slight complication that the FSA are rewriting their model rules. Now, they've agreed to do us a favour. They were targeting the end of the year, but they brought that forward and they're hoping to get them out shortly. The first draft has already gone to the FCA and they're looking to put a revised draft in. Once we've got that, we'll be mapping across. We've been through the whole constitution, reviewing clause by clause, deciding what we need, whether the language needs to be tightened or be removed. We'll then be mapping across to the new constitution once we receive it and hopefully get a draft out quite soon. But that's where we're on that process. I want to get that bit of the work done by probably the end of July now, with the delay in the model constitution from the FSA, and then we'll be effective in the lap of the gods of the FCA. I suppose one question, sensible, is why do we use the model rules? What the FCA will do is take the model rules and they'll tick off. And if you give them a completely rewritten constitution that's not based on them, it'll just take months and months and months for them to approve. So we've agreed this is the quickest way to get that constitution. But I'm hoping if we do it that way, we'll get the revised constitution, the members, well before the AGMs at the end of the year. Okay. So I think the next slide is for you, Angus.
Thanks, Sean. Thanks for that. And I'm very grateful for all the work that people are doing on the Constitution. It's very difficult stuff and not that interesting, I might add. The Online Safety Act is important to us, and I wanted to spend a couple of minutes talking to you about that. Can you have the next slide, please? So in March this year, the Online Safety Act became enforceable. It's regulated by Ofcom, and it affects us because we run what's called a user-to-user service, which is the Don's Discord, which I'm sure you're familiar with in the room that replaced our ProBoards system. Because it's a user-to-user service and regulated, there's the potential there for substantial fines for non-compliance with the Act. What does that mean? Well, it means that we needed to conduct a risk assessment against what the Act defines as 17 different categories or forms of illegal harm, which might be possible to have on a user-to-user service. So we've done that piece of work. The Secretariat and myself and others on the board went through each of the possible types of illegal harm defined by the Act and also considered other possible harms that may not be defined by the Act, which is also a requirement of this risk assessment. And a summary of this risk assessment is going to be placed on our website, and you'll be able to read the details of it if you would like to. We have low risk for most of the forms of illegal harm that are defined by the Act, but medium risk for a 2 and medium also for a 3rd harm, which we identified ourselves. The 3 harms that we assessed as medium are The first one is encouraging or assisting suicide or attempted suicide. It's a medium risk of that happening on our platform. The second one is hate. These definitions are the definitions from the Act. And the third one is libel, and the libel one is the one that we determined ourselves was an additional risk that we faced. Under the Act, what we must do is to review our platform against these 17 illegal harms every year, or if there's any significant change to our service. And we've defined where we mitigate against these illegal harms, and why we've justified why we've categorised our harms as low and medium risk. And I think it's incumbent on us all to think about our online activities on our forums. And something we're also going to be considering in a future Don's Trust Board meeting is whether to have what Discord have, which is an off-platform behaviour policy, which is to say that if people behave in a way that crosses the threshold for these illegal harms on a platform that is not our Discord, that is somewhere else, and we are notified about it, then we may take action subject to that policy being enacted to remove those people from our platform too. There are other pieces of legislation coming in over the next year or so, which will make it even more the responsibility of the organisation to police the content that is produced by them. So I'm very glad to say I think we're on top of it, and our Discord is generally a convivial place with the odd pot shot at different people, but that's part and parcel of what it's all about. And the quite fervent discussions about our match days, and long may that continue. But we do all have a responsibility here to observe the requirements of the Act, because the last thing that we need at Wimbledon is a giant fine from someone like Ofcom taking us to task for the Act. There's a couple more slides in this deck, and so when you see the deck, you'll see the slides of detail, but I don't think we need to present them in this session here.
So, Stu, I think we need slide 17, and that's questions. If you could, in time-honoured fashion, give us your name before you ask the question, please. Thank you.
Right, my name is Andy Ramsden, and I'd like to thank you for your presentation so far this evening. I've got to ask you a question about this 50.1. It was indicated in the presentation earlier on this evening that that's a longer-term revisiting, but I would suggest that maybe we can revisit it in a different way, and I've already written to the Secretary about it. I had no response, but I wasn't really expecting one. I was just preparing for this meeting. That we could suggest, the 50.1, maybe people felt a little bit edgy, so close to it, even though it's illogical, that we make it 60%. So at least we're encouraging capacity for, the a 10% here and a 10% there investment. So I would like to propose that we look at it quicker than what was suggested earlier on, but in a different format, so it overcomes anything, or we've already had a vote on it.
Thank you, Andy. So I think there was at the time of those votes, there was a strong feeling that we needed to get the Constitution updated before we came back to members. So I think that is the commitment that's been made. However, should an opportunity arise, it might be that we would need to go back with a proposal to reduce below 75% and say, well, it's actually because this person wants to invest, and we would recommend that's looked at. But we would also explain what the funds that are going to be received would be for. In terms of the 50.01, I mean, I'm pushing that we're going to call it 51%, just because people do get worried about that 0.01. However, if you think about it, it's as long as the Don's Trust has that majority, even if it's just a small sliver, the Don's Trust will be voting its shares and votes en bloc. So as soon as you're above 50 point at or above 50.01, that's as secure as you can get. But I take your point. It might be that we'd look at an interim to say to go to 60, but we'll look at that when that comes to that point. Okay, thank you.
Lee Romblow. Regarding finances, is the club going to do anything else about getting those empty seats filled? It's ridiculous, the amount of seats that are empty. People can't get tickets, and I feel something else should be done.
Thank you for that, Lee. The first thing to say is that when the club advertises a match as being sold out, that means we've sold all the tickets, but you're quite right that there are, on a match day, a number of empty seats. Mostly, those are because of season tickets and season ticket holders who decide for whatever reason they can't attend that match. So we've got the income for the tickets, but of course, we might lose in atmosphere and we might lose in match day revenue from people buying beers, buying food, buying merchandise, whatever. So yes, we want to get as many people in the ground as possible. The thing the club has done for next season, because we are one, but obviously two separate aspects to it, recognise that we want to get as many people in as possible. The thing the club has done is to introduce the new ticketing app. That will allow a much easier ability to transfer your ticket on your phone if you have one, but we can do it by paper as well, so that if you can't go to a game, give it to your family, give it to your friends, that's fine, no problem whatsoever. If not, sell it to somebody else who wants it. We want that, to put it crudely, bum on seat. At the moment, you can do that, but it's a bit of a faff. What we want to have is the ability just to pass it on very easily through the club if you don't have a friend or family member to do so. That's the first stage. I realise, of course, it's not the only stage. At all times, we're going to be, and the club's going to be, looking at the number of tickets we have available for each match through the foundation and through other schemes that we use to bring new people who often can't afford to come to football matches into our ground. We want them here. They're going to spend when they get here, even if we don't get ticket revenue from them. But it needs to be done on a match-by-match basis. Depending on what division we're in next year, we'll have to look at, and I don't want to diss on any club, but Accrington on a Tuesday, but if we were in the same division as Birmingham, we would expect them to sell out the away end without any problem whatsoever. We have also noted that Tuesday nights and rearranged games in particular have a lower take-up of season ticket holders. We know that people plan their diaries in advance. I don't, I'm hopeless with that. But people plan their diaries in advance, and they may have booked to go away, they may have booked to work, they may have booked to be doing whatever. That's fine, that's their life, that's what happens. But it means that if we rearrange a game for a Tuesday night, they're not going to be able to attend. So we need to make it as easy as possible for them to attend. We need to make it as easy as possible for them to sell their ticket if they can't attend. There are a number of schemes that have been proposed, including sort of standby schemes where you know you're going to watch the match, but you don't know where from. That's pretty difficult within the law and within our limited capacity to be able to do. But we're always looking at new ideas, and we welcome anything that you or others can come up with. But the club is very well aware that not only do we want to officially sell out, we want to actually get as many people in this ground as possible.
Hi, Gary Davis. So Sean, thanks so much for the update on the Constitution. And I'm sure I remember when it was, I think it was the members meeting where there was a number of members' resolutions where it was first discussed. I may be getting the wrong memory. And I think I appreciate then it was going to be a protracted process. But I think I've genuinely forgotten, in terms of the rewrite, kind of strategically, what does it mean in terms of taking the Don's Trust, the club, forward?
If you speak to anyone that's read our constitution, it's very hard to understand quite what a lot of the paragraphs mean, and also what was the intention of that paragraph being in there. It's something that's obviously had bits added, bits taken away over many, many years, and it's got to the point where it's not fit for purpose. It was effectively written before the mobile age. So, for instance, it talks of giving someone your proxy. In this day and age, you can vote electronically. The FSA have listened to quite a lot of the actual... Funny enough, they've listened to quite a lot of the discussions that we were having at that meeting and in other times, and they've actually used quite a lot of that to rewrite the model constitution. So the current draft of the model constitution, as sent to the FCA, doesn't have proxies. It has electronic voting, because it's much more sensible than asking someone to take the piece of paper to the meeting and say, I'm holding a proxy. So it's making it simpler to understand, what I call modern day English, and recognising the current times, and clarifying who can be on the board, how the votes are held, etc. So it's just making it fit for purpose for now. Is that okay, Gary? Yeah, thank you.
Hi, Dan Curran. Can you talk a bit more about how the decision was made to lose effectively £1 million last year, or was the decision to be 14th in the players' budget table? How does the thinking go? And then as a follow-on, what will the thinking be next year with financial fair play coming in?
I wasn't actually on the board. I don't know if you want to answer that one, Angus, or I can give a stab, but maybe best if you answer, or do you want me to stab? Okay, so I think what will have happened is we recognised that we had a certain level of budget, and actually Michelle might know as well. We'll go to Michelle in a minute. We had a level of playing budget which we were struggling in the league, and that if we really wanted to stay in the league, we would need to probably increase that slightly, or at least match it. Now, an earlier site in previous seasons of what's commonly we refer to as football fortune, which is the player sales that we've had. So you'll have seen we've had some funds that came in into last year for Michael Goulding. There's other amounts. We also had Ali, Jack. So there's sight of monies that will come in to help cover that operating loss. Where we currently are is that we don't have really sight of that sort of level of detail, but the decision when it comes to the final budget will be, do we want to cut our cloth and take quite a significant amount out, which will probably give us the lowest playing budget in the league, and probably could threaten us with relegation. See Eric's in the room, and I remember him presenting to the Don's Trust board some time ago that if you correlate league position with playing budget, over time you'll come back to the median. So if you have the 20th, you're likely to finish around about 20th. You can outperform and underperform. So I think that'll be what the decision was last year, the need to maintain a certain level of budget and sight of that football fortune income we expected to get. The interesting conversation will be, we've already started to have and we'll have to have, is what do we want to do for next season? Does that answer your question? I mean, I think that's is the level of your playing budget versus your revenues, and we're not hit by that because
other teams will be.
Well, we'll have to see what they do. We've had fair play in leagues far above us, and you've seen they've found a way out of it. I mean, you look at Manchester City with a case of 116 charges. We'll see. I'm not going to guess what the impact's going to be on other clubs and how they're going to try and structure themselves. Alex?
I think the other thing that's coming in, of course, is the bill that had the second reading in Parliament today, the Football Regulator Bill. We don't yet know what form that will pass Parliament, and we don't yet know how strong that regulation will be, but I strongly suspect it's going to introduce another level of financial fair play, to use that term, on football at all levels. And I think we are well placed here to take advantage of that because our money is clean. We aren't relying on debt funding. We may not be the best funded club in League Two, let alone League One. That's not wood. But we know that whatever reasonable regulation comes in, we will be okay for it. Obviously, we didn't go into this season saying we want to be 14th in the financial league table. We don't even know where we are until later in the season. But we've always been a club, and I hope, certainly I will always vote, to remain a club which has reasonable financial modelling. We know how much debt we're getting into, and we know how we're going to finance that debt, because we don't have some money bags owner who can make up the shortfall. We don't have 4 million as Port Vale have. We don't have a huge amount of debt that we cannot service, that we just roll over forever and ever. The work that Michelle has done with the bond and so on is incredible. But the detail that's gone into that, the ability to be able to finance it, we have the plans in place to be able to do so. And that's what makes us different. Certainly if 6,000 plus members all stumped up £1,000, we'd be a lot better off. But that's not what we're about, because we know that many of our members can't afford that. And that's where Hannah's slides on fundraising came in, about how we can top up our playing budget, our capex, capital expenditure budget, and various other things to be able to make this ground better, our playing staff as good as possible for the management, and be able to move forward. But no, I have to say, whatever league we're in next season, I doubt very much we'll be at the top of the spending tree. But equally, even though, as Sean says, things tend to revert to the median over time, I think coming into this season we expected Carlisle to have one of the biggest playing budgets in the league, and look what happened to them.
Well, anecdotally, I've been told by someone that wasn't reading the EFL report at the time that actually Carlisle had the biggest playing budget in our league, 5 million. So you're not guaranteed success, but over the longer term you will be. So is that address the question? Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Oh, I think Jane was first, and then this gentleman here.
Thank you. So a couple of things, just to pick up on a few points you've made throughout. Finance, really pleased to see a push on the Don's Draw. That's been sadly lacking for years. We've gone from 4,800 people on a match day to 8,600. So you've got a massive market there to promote it to, plus reminding people who do it regularly already that they can increase their offer. Possibly a bit of a tetchy one, end of season dinner, end of season awards. Really, really disappointed to see that not happen this year. I thought the statement was as lame as it possibly could be, that the players would be distracted, and yet we then see WDON hand out their award on the pitch before the game, and then we see, quite rightly, Owen Goodman going collecting his award yesterday evening as part of the EFL Team of the Year. I would like the Dons Trust to really hold the club to account on that decision. That'd be the first time in 20 odd years we haven't done it. Even when we were relegated, we did it, and we should do it. 50.01 and the longer term revisiting. Really grateful if the Dons Trust could enforce upon the club, or whoever is going to present it, the loss that we make by losing special resolutions in plain English. And picking up the point Andy made about 60%, there is no difference with what you lose from 75% to 50.1, and that needs to be really, really clear to people. Mixed reappointment. Sean, you mentioned reappointment several times, which makes it sound like it's not a new appointment, which implies that he is being reappointed for a second 3-year term. Can you be really clear, please, on what it is, where we are in his appointment process? Has he already served 3 teams of a potential 9-year term max, as per the articles? And then is there any update at all, or are we still not allowed to talk about it, the missing 400 plus K that was announced in the accounts last year?
Right, okay, thanks Jane. Right, it's an essay coming up. Yeah, Don's Draw, probably not been marketed or we've touched on it. As soon as we've got the ability to get the direct debit link on the website, we'll be giving that a push, along with regular donations and other fundraising, as Hannah said. Player of the Year. Now, that was an operational decision taken by the club. I understand the disappointment of fans, but I'd have a bit of sympathy with the decision as it was made, particularly the reaction of the fans at Gillingham, which was probably the worst I've ever seen. But it was their decision. I think we should be going back to where we used to be, which was we have an end of season dinner. One, it's a good money raiser for the club. You know, it's after the end of the season. To me, actually giving out awards when we're hoping still we're going to be in the playoffs and have 3 games to go plus Grimsby, so 4, it does seem a bit strange. I'll be pushing strongly for an end of season dinner and awards. But I do understand there was a lot of angst on that decision. It was an operational thing by the club.
2016 was the week before the playoff final, and the whole different atmosphere around the club at that point about we're going to Wembley not to take part, to take over, that is missing massively from this club at this moment.
Yeah, I take your point, Jane. Timing would be interesting. I would have it afterwards, but other people may not. But I think it should be in a separate event and celebrated as such. 50.01, yes, who will be presenting it? Hopefully me, but unless something strange and startling happens, but that can always happen. But I'll be doing that. Yes, there will be something very clear that sets out what is the difference between protections between 75% and 50, let's call it 51%, because it's easier to say. It'll also set out why we want to do it if we're going to put it forward, what it'll be used for. I've put Mick. So yes, I suppose we use the word reappointed because we've gone through a process and therefore we were agreeing to his reappointment. But no, he is up for re-election at the next AGM, and I believe he still has some time he could serve. But I would need to check that, but I think he does. And as for I think you called it the missing 400, we are at the start of, we have taken some legal actions in terms of letters being exchanged. We're currently reviewing those and where we are. I can't make any promises as to how that will come out, but I would expect it to be moving along relatively quickly, if you would agree with that, Michelle. Relatively quickly, we think, but we're slightly in the hands of lawyers and getting responses from other parties, which is taking a little bit longer than we'd like. Is that all? I think that's all your questions, Jane, but I may have missed one. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, hi there. My name's Alex Ramsden. So my question's really following on the previous question about the sold out games and all the empty seats. So having just moved to Earlsfield myself, I've got a number of friends who live in Clapham, Wandsworth, Earlsfield, very keen to come to games. You just can't get them a ticket. So they don't want to just sit on their own. So I wondered if there was a way we could segregate like a section of seats. So if people want to come in twos, threes or a group, then at least they can sit together because people aren't going to come on their own. And then the other thing, the divide between the home and the away end, I'm always interested to know why we have 50, 100 seats segregating home and away ends. When you look at the Premier League, and literally there's barely one aisle segregating it. Surely marginal gains, we should be maximising that space. And then just one final question. What are we likely to increase the capacity of the stadium by 2, 3, maybe 4,000 anytime soon?
Okay, thanks for those. On the sold out nature, as you probably know, we have a large number of debenture holders. These are people who have the right to have a seat, but they can choose whether or not to buy their seat in advance of each game. They've got a deadline, I believe, of 8 days before the match to be able to say yes or no. And that means that sometimes we are sold out. We have sold every ticket we can. And then 8 days before, or 7 days before, we release some new seats. And that's because of those debenture holders who we haven't heard from, or we haven't heard that they are going to take up their seats. There are some other seats that sometimes we give away because we want to introduce people to our club, which aren't always taken up. That's something that the club operationally is aware of and is aware that we want to get as many bums on seats as I said previously. So there's nothing we can, or indeed that we would want to do about the debenture holders at this stage, because these are people who've given us money to buy a debenture, and we're grateful to them for that. But it's always worth checking back. It's also always worth checking back because there may be seats on resale, and the new ticketing platform should make that possible and easier. I mean, in recent weeks, we've seen tickets being sold on the afternoon of a 3 o'clock kickoff. So there are always seats that, excuse me, there are always seats that become available. That's not ideal because your friends want to be able to plan their afternoon. I accept that. But it is something that the club is aware of and wants to fix. Can we hold a block back for people who want to come on the day? Well, we could do so, but we're then taking a chance as to whether we will sell that number of tickets. Because if we're saying, no, we won't sell advance, we'll sell on the day, we are taking a risk. And as you said, marginal gains. So it's always good for the club to be able to sell as many tickets as possible, as early as possible. We would also have the issue that we have season tickets all the way around the ground. And therefore, moving season ticket holders who want to sit in their seat for whatever reason is a difficult conversation to have. And season ticket holders commit for the year, and so we are potentially alienating people who are fronting up quite a lot of money, not knowing what we might get back. Sorry, remind me the segregation. Sorry. This is not something that we as the Dons Trust Board have any say over. It's an operational matter. It's done for safety reasons. Part of the answer is that we are not aware until quite late in the day how many seats the opposition will want. They initially come back to the club and say, we will take, let's say, 1,000 seats. So we give them 1,000 tickets and they try to sell those tickets. We therefore block off at 1,000. We don't know how many they're actually going to sell. Sometimes their estimates are not really as good as we would hope. And so they have empty seats in their area. We then have a segregated block, and that's done, as I said, for safety reasons. It depends on the number of stewards we have. It depends on police advice. It depends on who are coming from away. We don't have the facilities and the number of stewards that the Premier League has. To invest in that would cost us a lot of money. But again, it's something that the club is aware of, and it's something that the club wants to make sure they get as right as possible, because if we can fill as much as possible of this stadium, that'd be great. The final question is can we increase capacity? The short answer is no. Not easily anyway, not without a lot of capital expenditure. The only seats that we have that aren't sold are on the third tier. There aren't a huge number of them, but we would need to invest in fitting out that third tier in order to be able to bring those seats into use, because at the moment it's pretty much a shell up there. That's the easiest and cheapest way to bring some new seats in. Everything else would rely on building a new stand on one of the 3 currently semi-permanent stands. That's a lot of money, and money that we simply do not have. Would we like to do so? Oh yeah, absolutely. I'd love to get this up to the capacity, the 19,000 capacity that we had planning permission for. But that's not going to happen in the immediate future, and it's not going to happen without some significant capital expenditure, which either means us as a club having lots of money, and I don't see how that's going to happen in the short to medium term, or it relies on working with a partner who would finance the building of a new stand in return for something that we can offer them. Principally, that might be land and the ability, subject to planning permission, to build a hotel or something there. It's something that we are having very early discussions about, because we would like to do so, but please don't hold your breath, because I'm afraid it's not going to happen in the short term, much as we would all like it to.
Yeah, thank you.
Just one additional thing. Where the club has been better at managing is the number of away fans and going back to them and querying that. So if you've noticed that some of the more recent games, the away fans are squeezed into the corner, which then means we do have a block of seats, which there is no prior takers from Wimbledon. And I would suggest that if you want to get your mates down, which you should do, because once you do, they'll want to come back, target one of those games and maybe ask the club early, are they going to be doing that and when will the seats go on sale? Because I think then you'll be able to get a block down there. And I think, I was away, but I think that's where the Dutch fans were? The PSG fans, they managed to buy, I think, about 100 tickets or something, which is pretty impressive.
Can I just add as well, I'm a geek, so I looked up some of the other capacities. This is a nice problem to have. Yeah, the fact we really are filling the place. I looked up Port Vale. They had a game this year with 10,000 empty seats. So they may get promoted, and good luck to them, but this is what other clubs have got, spare capacity and an older stadium that they can just use when they need it. We don't have that yet.
The questions? Add your 6, Jane. You're only allowed 6.
Don't roll your eyes, Sean. You said something about the planning permission, which reminds me, we got planning permission in 2016 for 20,000-seater stadium, 19,900 and something or other. To keep that planning permission, we have to put colloquially, a fork in the ground and do something every so often to keep the planning permission. Are we doing that?
I believe that because we've started work, that gives us it's live, but I could probably defer to Mr. Samuelson, who can confirm that from his knowledge of the time, unless he's keen.
Well, it's okay.
I was planning not to say anything tonight. This is my best side, thanks, Martin. I understood that provided you take substantial steps towards a planning permission, which could even be just as much as building the foundations, it is then there in perpetuity for you. You don't need to stick it, unless they've changed the planning rules, and I don't think they could do that retrospectively. I think we're safe in that respect.
Thank you, Eric. Any other questions?
Hi, Gary here again. I just remembered, I saw in a recent minutes, and I don't know whether it was the PLC board or the Dons Trust board, and I think it was Michelle talking about the need for possibly having a lawyer on the relevant board. Was that kind of prompted, the thinking behind that was that, like a missing skill set, something like that?
Yes, I mean, we're always looking at the skill set of the board, and a glaring gap on the board. We got people with financial experience, marketing experience, business development experience, but we don't have anyone with a legal background on the. I'm pretty sure certainly not on the PLC board and not on the trust board either. So yes, it was looking at a gap that we believe needs to be filled, and we're currently interviewing for that role. Michelle, I think, and Angus spent all of Friday at the club interviewing a number of candidates. We got an exceptionally good list of people looking to come and join us. So we're very hopeful we're going to get a very strong lawyer who'll join the board. I think people are beginning to look a bit thirsty. We'll take 2 more questions. Will?
Thanks. My question is perfect for thirsty people, and apologies to our colleagues who might be helping us quench that thirst. But do we have an update on the catering contract? And you may not be able to answer it.
Well, we're at the final stages. We would hope to be announcing something shortly, but I can't give any more than that. All I can say is that it'll be more remunerative for the club going forward. I think the joy of it is that people, when you're doing the first contract, I'm not even sure we'd finish this off. We've now got an established revenue trends and businesses, and people come in and look on price on that. So we're actually very excited as to some of the opportunities that we might have. And we believe we'll also get some contribution to CapEx that's related to catering. So we are hoping to see a significant uptick in revenues. Right, any other questions before we let people get a drink? Well, there will be scope for questions afterwards when we're looking at the strategy. So if you think of something while you're having a pint, we can take it then. Okay, thank you. So we'll have a 10-minute break. So, ladies and gentlemen, I think we'll start the second half, and James is going to take us through the draft strategy for the Dons Trust, which is, as I've said, at a very early stage at this time. James.
Thank you, everyone. I'm going to rattle through this because I appreciate it's nearly 9 o'clock on a Monday night and we've all probably got better things to do. But this is something I'm really passionate about, and we've been working as a board to do. Kind of in our history, we've often had an AFC Wimbledon strategy, which has made total sense because the Dons Trust was really operational in our early days. Now that it's not so operational, the club's got a strategy, and we really felt as a board that the Dons Trust needed a really clear sense of purpose, and to communicate that to members and get feedback from members. So you'll see at the bottom left there, that says draft strategy. This is very much like the first conversation we want to have about this with members. Next slide, please, Stu. So why does the Dons Trust need a strategy? As you've heard tonight, our operating environment's really challenging, and to succeed, the DT needs a clear strategy and focus. And we need to communicate that strategy and focus to all our members so that you can hold us to account, you can help us hold the club to account, we can help grow together. The Trust has got a specific remit of its own in engaging with its members, engaging with the wider world of football. So what we want to do is put this strategy together that looks 3 years ahead, gives us 3 years of focus as a board. We want to review it annually because stuff changes. And once we've agreed it with you guys, we'll set some KPIs and we can report on progress, and that can be really clear for everybody. And I think it meets some of the challenges we've all had about, kind of what is the DTB doing, what is their role. It gets increasingly complicated as the club develops as well. This strategy builds on some existing KPIs we've had that were done by the previous board and builds on the Trust's objects, which are in our constitution. I'll say one more time, this is a draft strategy for discussion. This is the first time we're going to show it to you. It is a draft. We want your feedback. As I go through this, if you've got burning questions and comments, as long as they're not pointing out my spelling errors, please stick your hands up and I welcome them. If not, we'll do questions at the end. But for anyone online and for everyone in the room, we will share all these slides. There'll be future meetings in which we can discuss this as well. I don't know if I've mentioned, but this is a draft strategy for discussion. Our mission, so it's important to have a mission. I think at various points of our foundation, we've had really clear ones. I think we've put this down, it's a bit too wordy. It's not a North Star, it's a mission. It's to continue and grow AFC Wimbledon as a fan-owned club with our men's and women's teams competing at the highest levels possible, contributing significantly to our community. I think, there's lots of words in there. We'd love to narrow that down. We want to get your input about what the right thing is in there. For us, that feels like a really sensible place for us to start, and everything then flows out of that mission. And what we've done is identified kind of 8 areas, 8 strategic aims and responsibilities. So there's a bit of corporate speak in there, I'm sorry. Maybe we'll come up with a better name for that. Opinions welcome. And so the 8 are fan ownership, oversight, membership, fiscal stewardship, community, governance, growth, and then our input into wider football. I'm not going to read all these slides out, I promise. So strategic aim 1 is fan ownership. Pretty obvious, right? Safeguard and exercise our member ownership of AFC Wimbledon. And the second part of that is really important to us. So the safeguarding our fan ownership of AFC Wimbledon, no lower than whatever we set it at, but making sure we always are the majority fan owners. And then ensure that the interests of our fans, part of the Dons Trust role is to represent our members both to the club and to the wider world. But we need to make sure that our members are at the heart of everything the club does. Oversight, really, really important role of the Trust, as we know. We appoint the club chair, we approve the club board appointments, we oversee and approve the club strategy, the execution of that, and budgets. And underneath that, we want to provide support for the women's team, including supporting their 3-year ambition, and the funding strategy support that. Sean's been talking about operational losses. We want to establish, and there's some work coming out that we've alluded to, what is a realistic level, given our structure, that we can achieve for both the men's and the women's team, given the, quite frankly, insane world of football finances that we operate in. And we want to ensure that the club's commercial partners share our values, and I think that's really important. Membership, So represent the views and the interests of DT's members and communicate effectively. I didn't put improved DT comms in there. It's in all 500 manifestos of anyone who's ever stood for the DT. But one of the things we're doing, and you may have heard about this, we've talked about it before, is the trust have funded a membership manager that's going to work within the club structure and represent and support the membership, both club and trust side. We think that's really, really important. We're interviewing for that at the moment. We've had some really strong candidates. We want to make voting, Sean's talked about the Constitution and moving that online. We want to make these meetings and other meetings we do and communication a better experience for all our members. We know we aren't going to get 6,000 plus members to an SGM. We know that, but what we can do, like we've done tonight with, Maddie did an amazing job earlier, I think you'll all agree, in interviewing Jacqui and having Jacqui down here, providing, kind of more than just an SGM questions, as important as that is. And we want to make our elections more vibrant and diverse. It was not lost on anyone, I think, that the slate of candidates this year, including myself, were all male. We're all of a certain age. I think I was the second youngest. If I'm the second youngest in any category of anything, that's bad news, kind of say. Making our elections more diverse is really, really important. I think we're going to have to go on a bit of a journey to do that. I'm really personally passionate about this, and I'm looking for input from people about how we can do that. So there'll be more on that to come. Fiscal stewardship, looking after the money, basically, isn't it? Making sure we've got a long-term bond management plan, support and vet any potential investors that might come through, bring suitable minority investors that get through that vetting process to you guys to vote them, to approve them, because at whatever level that comes in, and then improve the long-term finances of the trust to then be able to buy back some of the equity as well. I know that seems like a crazy thing to be saying when we're talking about a possible vote further down the line of selling equity, but Exeter, who we often look to in other ways, they've started buying back chunks of their equity. It's certainly something that we could look to do in the future. Community is so important. We need to ensure that the club remains in Wimbledon and grows the game in the local community. So we need to make sure the club's contributing to the local community. We need to make sure that the club and the trust reflect back the community that we operate in, both locally and I think globally as well. We need to do a better job of communicating the stuff that we do in the community. There's some amazing work that we do both through the foundation and through the other charities. We need to keep pushing that message out, because I think for us actually that's a route to a different kind of sponsor and commercial partners as well. We need to grow our local support for the women's team. That's really, really important, and our global support for the women's team. And we need to improve the coordination between our charities. We've got amazing charities. John will tell you we're the only club that's got 3 charities. I don't know whether that's true or not, but I believe him. We need to make sure they're coordinating and working together where they can. 6, governance. So ensure that the DT's got fit for purpose governance. That means a new Dons Trust constitution we've heard about, and I've talked about it already. Increase the diversity across all areas. So increase the diversity in our membership, in our working groups, in our meetings, in the DTB leadership and DTB candidates as well. I think one of the things we've talked about and we've heard from lots of people is that, being on the DTB takes quite a lot of work, and you have to be comfortable sacrificing time away from family, time away from work, that kind of thing to do it. So we need to make sure that being on the board isn't the only game in town, that you can contribute to the club in lots of different ways, you can contribute to the trust in lots of different ways, and that's something that I think we need to work more on and would love input on as well. Growth, I'm really passionate about. We need to drive our membership growth both domestically and internationally. We want to work with the new incoming membership officer when we recruit them, and the club's marketing team to produce a plan to try and get towards 10,000 members. And then why stop there? Let's go even further. The more members we have, the more finances we have, the bigger our model is, the more commercial partners we get in. That's one of the ways we're going to grow our way potentially out of the insanity of football finances. I'd love for us to increase our international membership as well. Our US membership shrunk last year by quite a bit, which was a shock to me when I went through those numbers. We really need to grow that. We've got the YouTube documentary coming out. That should really help with that. I think we really need to push what the offer is for those international members and how they can become part of the club as well. And finally, wider football. We want to play an active role in creating a more fair and sustainable football, whether that's kind of pushing and lobbying for the for the establishment of the independent football regulator, which Alex has talked about this evening, and the guys at Fair Game have been doing, which we're a member of. And then as they come along, consider any proposals for involvement within new organisations within football as well. So I've absolutely came through that as promised. But just to reiterate, I am going to share it with everyone. We'll do online sessions. We're really keen for feedback. We'll do more in-person sessions if there's demand for them. So the next steps, we're going to share it with you. We're going to share it with you in more detail. We're going to share it with the club board and the club exec for their input, which we haven't done yet. You're getting the first view of this rather than the club this time round. We're going to gather feedback, refine that strategy, define the KPIs that then flow out of that so that we can report to you guys on how the progress that's been made. We'll publish that final version. As with all things, kind of as I said with this one's a draft. Any version we produce will be a working document. Stuff happens a lot around football. Stuff happens a lot around this football club. We need to be able to refine any plans that we have. And we'll report an update on performance as we go along as well. Thank you. Any questions on any of that? And I appreciate that that's kind of quite a lot of information downloaded quite rapidly.
John Dolan, a quick one. What are the current KPIs?
So the current KPIs, I don't have them in front of me, but they involve, there's kind of 6 headings, and they involve growth of membership, managing our debt, improving our constitution. There's a governance one in there, and there's a couple of more that I can't remember. But we shared them with members. They're on the Dons Trust website. Can you remember them?
There's also one about increasing the ownership of the football club above 75%. But, I mean, the membership one is out of date, because with the change to include the membership with the season tickets, I think we were targeting being over 5,000. We're at 6.5, subject to renewals. The equity, we've already agreed that we're more than likely to go down. So they needed a revision, as they always should. I mean, KPIs should be dynamic, and they shouldn't be something that you can never achieve. Hopefully, we didn't expect to achieve the first one quite so quickly, so we'll have to calibrate so that we've got a good target for 3 years hence.
James, you did indeed go through that 110 miles an hour. Too quick for me to keep up with. You explained, I think you called it a membership manager role, but apologies if I got the titles wrong because you were super quick. Lots of people have talked about the concept of a sort of like a volunteer manager. Would you see that role sort of overlapping with that so that we can tap into the skill set of our fan base and try and both boost income, save costs that way?
I think it's a really good question. I think we've talked about that a lot. It's the volunteer manager, managing our volunteers and getting more out of our, kind of allowing more of our members to come and support the club where they need it is really important. I'm really cautious about this is a new role we've created and pouring too much in, like kind of one person is going to solve all of our, kind of all of our challenges. So I don't see them as a volunteer manager. There is a part of the job description that is about talking to our membership about their skills and how they can, kind of how we can access those. It's not a volunteer manager role, but, I think there'll be an element of that in there for sure.
Whilst people are thinking of any questions, George, do we have any online questions?
Yeah, we've had several online questions throughout the evening. The first one came in before tonight, actually. They wanted to talk about the impact of the flood, the insurance, and the premium change that's likely to occur in the summer. So they'd like an update on that.
I'm probably not the expert on this, but I think I'm right in saying, Michelle, that at James Woodruff's recommendation, we increased the cover that we had on our insurance policy for this current insurance year, which cost us a reasonable sum of money in premium, but it has paid for itself a factor of 5 or 10 or more. So all the damage has been covered, etc., and going to help us with some of the projects we've got. What will happen with the premium in advance? I don't think we're at that stage yet, are we, Michelle, for premium changes?
No, we're not ready there yet. I think we were expecting possibly it might double, which is a bit scary. But I think initial thoughts from the broker are that it won't be as much as that.
Yeah.
But
I mean,
not there.
what I think we all know is insurance companies love to take your premiums and they hate to pay out. And as soon as they do, they're going to be looking at how they can recover the amount they've paid out over a period, whether they're going to look at it 5 or 10 years. So it'll go up, but it was still a very good investment that we made by taking that decision to increase the premium.
The next online question we had is, sorry, your name's disappeared on the Discord, but they were talking about wanting an update on Broncos. Where are we at, especially in relation to costs and floodlight upgrades?
Taking Jane's example of asking for, right. So the Broncos season has started. We have a deal with them. They're effectively pay per game. And we make, so there's a per game charge. And we make sure we get those revenues in. So I think it's a year deal, Michelle, I think, is it, that we have, rolling year. So they're up and running and paying the agreed revenues for sharing the pitch. What was the second one? I should have written those down. So what was the second one, George?
Was talking about the costs of floodlight upgrades, which was in relation to Broncos.
No, the floodlight upgrade has nothing to do with Broncos. You have, now I think I'm right in saying that you have to have 500 lux minimum to pass the EFL standard for our league, which we passed. When ITV brought their cameras down, they didn't believe we had. And if anyone sat in the main stand and tried to see the far corner underneath the scoreboard, you don't even know where the ball is, let alone who's on the ball. What we're looking at is having those upgraded, and it's whether we go for 600 or 800. And what we'll probably look to do, hence the we are the resurrection and we need more light, is to have a fundraise for those. We think something catchy like that to start the ball rolling on fundraising. But it would be, one, it will need to be done at a certain level, because the next time we have the audit or the test, we will not pass. But also, the best the lights, the more commercial opportunities you'll get for pitch hire. So I think the UEFA standard, I think, is 800 lux. So it's what level we would pitch that at. And that's, we're going to upgrade them because we need to fix the date in the diary, and then we're internally discussing what we look for, and hopefully we will have opened up that web page in the morning and the money will flood in.
The last online question I've got at the moment is talking about our US membership. They'd like to know what the year-to-year change was, and do we have any knowledge on our top states/cities for US members?
From what I can remember, I did some analysis on the international membership with the help of Stephen, our membership secretary, and the numbers weren't huge. They were in excess of 500, and it went down into the low hundreds last year. Where they are, I didn't look into that. I was just looking at kind of country level. But I think it's something we should look into, and we've talked with various international memberships groups, and John did a fantastic job getting the international supporters day earlier in the season that I think many of you would have experienced as well. So the more we can do there to grow our international membership, it's kind of is superb for us, because it's new opportunities, it's new revenue into the club, it's new people wearing our kits all over the world, which is what we want.
That's it online.
Any other questions from the room?
Hello, sorry, just me again. Obviously, I hadn't had enough of asking questions earlier. It was just one around, obviously, looking into that future generation. I touched on it a little bit earlier. You touched on it in the strategy presentation. And I just wondered if you had any ideas that you wanted to start looking at. And I think one thing is, we mentioned, obviously, bringing season tickets as your Don's Trust membership together has really increased that kind of influx of people that are members. And obviously you've got the junior dons. Now, we know that them junior dons are one day going to be you guys, right? So how do we get them to that position? Because as someone who's 25, I wouldn't feel comfortable running for a board because I have absolutely no idea what I'd bring to a board, right? Do you have any kind of ideas about how could you slowly kind of incorporate them junior dons into that membership and, for example, express more about the Dons Trust in that positive light, but also in the knowledge light? Because growing up, I wasn't young enough to be there when the Dons Trust started, so I find it really hard to understand fully the Dons Trust, the PLC, and I think that's something that younger people may struggle when they first come into this club to actually understand, because they are so invested in that aspect of the football and the community and how great it feels that they almost forget that side of actually we own the club and we can have a say. So yeah, just your views on that.
Yeah, I think it's so important, and one of the reasons for integrating season ticket memberships was to grow our younger membership base, which it has done. And then the next step is let's get them involved. And getting them involved might not be coming to here tonight, potentially, for a number of reasons. But what it might be is, and we try to do, Richard in the last board did a really good job trying to run 16 to 16 plus group. But it's hard to get people's buy-in. That lots of people at university, lots of people here. I think at the time it was a 16 to 24 group. Now you're at really different life stages between a 16-year-old and a 24-year-old as well. So that we need to look at that. What we do there. The ultimate answer is we need help. And I think your help and other people's help, anyone in this room to work out how we can do that, how we can tell those stories, and we're getting better at telling our stories, I think, across the board in the club and the trust, but we need to keep doing that work. And then, like I said, I think earlier, is that the Dons Trust board can't be the only game in town. We need to create other opportunities, whether that's I've got kind of like a youth council, or youth fans council. Council's not very exciting either, is it? But something more exciting that will bring those voices in. We did an event last year with a tour around the stadium, which I think you may have come to. I couldn't make, but we want to do more of those. It didn't have a huge attendance, but we need to keep doing those things. And one of the things we need to work out as well is the principles in my day job is you go where your audience are. So where is that audience? So that's kind of potentially TikTok and other places. We've got some really passionate creators, not all of them, kind of in the space that the Dons Trust wants to be in, but some of them certainly are. So how do we get them involved? How do we get them inside the club as well? So I think, kind of not to lean into the cliche too much, but it is a journey of how do we get those younger people involved, because they are the people who are going to vote on massive decisions. We want them to be part of the board in the future. We want to diversify in all sorts of ways the things we do.
So I think, unless there's any more questions online, George, in the room, we'll say thank you all for coming. Appreciate that it's a Monday night. People may want to come out, but thank you for coming. Hope you've had a good evening. As we say, we'll be sharing the presentation deck, and in particular the strategy, and we'd appreciate any comments that you have, good, bad, hopefully more good than bad, but we can't tell you what to say, but we'd love your feedback. It'll be the first of a number of events where we seek to get feedback from all the members, and then to look to get that published soon. So thank you very much for coming.